welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Bekah Jo, aka the Makeup Tax Lady. Today is Sydney Grace Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me. Sydney Grace Sunday is really just an excuse to use my Sydney Grace products regularly. The rules around Sydney Grace Sunday are very flexible. Oftentimes it's just me in my daily life wearing Sydney Grace on a given Sunday, but it also amounts to posting about Sydney Grace on Sundays or putting up a video or whatever that may be. If you are a lover of Sydney Grace, as I know several of you are, please feel free to join us in this. It doesn't have to be anything that you post, whether, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the social medias may be, or even YouTube, but like if you are inclined to, please feel free to join us, even if it's just doing your makeup using a little Sydney Grace. My friend Jana, I'll make sure that she is linked and available for you to check out. She is so much more consistent with uploading on YouTube for Sydney Grace Sundays, so please feel free to check her out if you'd like to see more Sydney Grace Sunday content. And now that all of my S's have joined together, let us get into today's look. I do already have my foundation, concealer, and then primer underneath all of that on. If you're curious, I'm wearing my Kingdom Come Home Blue Tansy foundation primer, my Clover Skin is In Blur Balm, and my Tower 28 concealer under my eyes and then in a few places. But before we set and before we do other things, we're gonna go in with some cream products. I want to use my cream bronzer in the shade Bon Bon today from Sydney Grace. This is a deeper bronzer shade, but it works really well for me for the summertime. I'm also using a Sydney Grace brush to blend this in. I do not know, oh, it's an F06. This brush is so soft. I love this brush for cream bronzer. I probably could use it for more, but it definitely works well for cream bronzer. Because this shade is a little bit deep, I'm trying not to go in with too much at once and build it up, but you can see it blends out so beautifully. I haven't set my face yet, so that helps. And it adds a nice bronziness to the skin. Next, let's add some cream blush. This is the shade Rosewood, also from Sydney Grace cream blush. And I also like to use this Sydney Grace brush. Mine doesn't have the number on it, but it fits into the little pot perfectly, and then I can be precise on its placement. This particular blush is a couple years old. It still performs beautifully. I think they're using a slightly different formula in their newer cream blushes, but it could also just be that those are newer, so they're a little bit fresher. Either way, it's a beautiful formula. I do typically, with all cream blushes that I wear, set them with a powder blush, so we'll do that in a bit. But doing that process, I find that they last well all day. Next, I want to set my face. This is my Sydney Grace Cloud 9 powder, and I'll use yet another Sydney Grace brush. Just so you know, I am using these on camera because it's Sydney Grace Sunday, but I use many of these products. The setting powder every single day. The blushes, probably like half of my week. The bronzers, totally depends. I have two cream bronzers from Sydney Grace. And like I said, this one's a little bit deeper. So this one I pretty much just use in the warmest months, or when I'm really feeling like I just need to add some color to my skin. Maybe it's a colder month and I just need to feel bronzed. So these products do get regular use from me, not just Sydney Grace Sunday use. Brows, I want to use my Mad For You brow palette. This is the blonde option, and I'm going to use these two shades, kind of dipping back and forth between them for the majority of my brows. And then on the very front of my brows, I'll focus on the lighter shade. This is such a fun face palette, brow palette. and I have traveled with this because these are eyeshadows and they're neutral eyeshadows, so they travel really well just to take with you to keep things simple but have a few options. And last I knew, you could customize a palette. I'm pretty sure that's what Alexa did. Alexa Blake, I can't remember what her current YouTube name is, but I'll have her linked in the description as well. She has recently discovered Sydney Grace and loving it, and I'm so glad for that. I'm gonna use my Sydney Grace Clear Stronghold Brow Gel. I haven't tried the tinted brow gels from Sydney Grace. If you have, let me know what you think. I really enjoy the clear, and part of the reason I keep going with clear, well, I guess twofold. I have stubborn brow hairs, and the clear, I believe, is the only one that comes in the stronghold, so it works better that way. And also, I don't like to do too much tint in my brows. I like to just add a little bit of shape and dimension, but I don't want them to get too deep. And so, not a knock against the Sydney Grace version, but other tinted brow gels I've tried in the past can lean that direction. You can get a little too much color too easily. I just set my lids with my About Face eyeshadow primer. This is the brush that I used to set my face, but I didn't add any additional setting powder. For my lids today, I want to pull out an oldie but goodie. If you have this palette, let me encourage you to do the same. I'm pretty confident it's not on their site anymore, but this is the Summer Days palette. I have it in the light version, but this is just a gorgeous summery palette. I usually think of this as like a July, August, like a hot, late summer sort of thing. And I really want to dip into this today. I picked up this set of natural hair brushes from Amazon. The brand is Enzo Ken. So this is just a large fluffy brush. I'm going to start with this into the shade Sandcastle. We'll run this across the lid just to give us a nice wash of color. These brushes are incredibly soft. Honestly, this by itself would be such a pretty one and done. Next, I'm going to use this Sydney Grace little blending brush. I love this brush. I use it all the time. And we're going to dip into Beach Days. I don't live anywhere near a beach. For shimmers, I'm going to start with Camping, which is this more warm, kind of bronzy shade. And I don't need a whole lot. That's so pretty. I'm going to tap this kind of lightly over the outer half of my lid. It's so warm and rich. And I don't reach for the like warm and rich shades all that much outside of the hot summer months. I like having the options, but these shades are not like my go-to shades. But then when I wear them and I feel like it's right, it's so fun. Now I'm gonna change it up just a little bit and go into a cream shadow from Sydney Grace. This is the shade Golden Horizon. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this to the back of my hand, and then I will use my clean finger to tap over the like inner portion of my lid. There's the shade. Got a little bit of sparkle in there. So pretty. If you couldn't see the sparkle before, hopefully you can now. I'm using just this big Moda brush just on the end, very gently, to make sure everything is blended nicely. Okay, I'm gonna go add my mascara and I'll be right back. Mascara is on. Here's what the eyes are looking like. I'm very happy with this look. I did add just a little bit of concealer to like clean up the outer edge because it had kind of gotten away from me. Mascara is Christian Beauty Co. The Lash Stop. Let's add some powder bronzer. This is my Sydney Grace Luminous Light palette. In the light version, this is the bronzer in the shade Starlight. I like to pick this up on my brush and then push it into the mirror. And then I like focusing my bronzer on the temples and then like top corners of my forehead. And then kind of onto my cheeks and elsewhere. But I have been loving this bronzer lately. If you are a regular to my channel, you know that. You have seen it, you have heard about it. And I do really enjoy the blushes and highlighter in here, but because we're doing a Sydney Grace Sunday, I'm gonna pull out some of my single blushes and highlighters to use. So here is one group of them. We've got blushes, and then these three are highlighters. These two blushes are a little bit shimmery. It's a soft shimmer. And then here we've got more. This one's not Sydney Grace, just needed a home. And this one is a bronzer, shimmery bronzer, but otherwise very similar depth shade to the bronzer I just used. And then these four are highlighters. These three are matte blushes. These two are a shimmery blush. I do also have a matte blush and highlighter in another palette, but you know what? We're gonna use one of these today. And actually, honestly, I wanna go more neutral, and these two are gonna be the ticket. So this one is a well-loved shade of mine. It is Daydream, and this one is the shade Peaches and Cream. Go back and forth between those two, use the lid a little bit, the mirror, and Tabaroni. We'll come back to lips in a second, but my favorite finishing step lately has been my Kingdom Come Home color correcting botanical powder. Did I say that right? I did. Oh, almost. Botanical color correcting powder. All the words were there. Just gonna use this. Focused on like the center of my face. And as product comes off the brush, we'll just kind of tap over the color products. This is a large Sydney Grace brush, and it's perfect for the job. With yet another Sydney Grace brush. Forgive me, a lot of these have come in like mystery boxes or bundles or that sort of thing. But I do love them and I do use them. So with this one, I'm gonna pick up Down the Aisle highlighter. It's just a pretty champagne-y highlighter shade. And I like this brush because it'll apply it just a little bit fluffy and keep it from being like a really intense streak. These Sydney Grace highlighters are really so pretty, and you can totally build them up to be a knockout, or you can soften them. And I hope you can see that we've got just a beautiful slight little sheen on the cheeks. Last but not least, lips. I'm gonna use a lip cream in the shade Rachel. Had to make sure I knew which one I picked up here. Again, I think this came in a mystery box, but it's a really pretty peachy shade, and these glosses are so fun. They're more pigmented and they last well throughout the day. They're moisturizing, and a little goes a long way. So if you are new to the formula, you don't need much. Okay, it did add just a splash of Mom Era lip liner from Elevate Beauty. This is just a nice, soft, neutral, rosy, peachy, neutral lip liner. And I added that just over the top, outside, of course, on my lip lines, of that lip gloss, just to add a splash more dimension. It's very soft because it's on top of the gloss. So here is today's final look. Happy Sydney Grace Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Let me know if you use, what you love from Sydney Grace, if you have any of the products that I used today, if maybe there's something really high on your wish list. I know the Christmas in July sale, which will be in August this year. I don't have any like insight on the timing or anything, just based on what I've seen on their Instagram posts. I do have an affiliate code with Sydney Grace if you are interested in picking anything up. I think my code is Bekah Jo 10, but it'll be on the screen to confirm or correct whatever I just said. I clearly am quite the fan of Sydney Grace and of many of their products. I have a playlist. If there's anything specific that you'd like to see or hear me talk more about, please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, let me get our Bible verse to close us out of today's video. Today's Bible verse is going to be Malachi chapter 3, verses 10 through 12, and I'm reading from the New King James Version. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open it for you, the windows of heaven, and pour out for you such blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, so that he will not destroy the fruit of your ground, nor shall the vine fail to bear fruit for you in the field, says the Lord of hosts. And all nations will call you blessed, for you will be a delightful land, says the Lord of hosts. Thank you once again so much for joining me for today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.